Hi, this is Heather from Keduzi, and this is a special video invitation to people who've been in Extinction Rebellion or are still in Extinction Rebellion. And I just want to explain why I think my work and the work that a community is now gathering together to do is relevant to you. I joined Extinction Rebellion with my daughter in 2018, and I was a volunteer teaching, training people in the principles and values for quite a few months, and got close to a lot of people who've had leadership positions in there. So I have a lot of experience with Extinction Rebellion, and I still know people inside, and I still know things that are going on. It's October 23rd, 2021. So there are a lot of patterns, as I see it, playing out in Extinction Rebellion. And we might call these white supremacy culture patterns, which is based on Tima Okun's work. And getting literate about these patterns can help us name what we see going on, and also provides some guidance towards antidotes for them. For example, there's only one right way to do this, to respond to climate change, and it's this particular strategy that Extinction Rebellion has come up with. We unpick the way that all these patterns play out in a movement like Extinction Rebellion, and also look at the way that if we look at a list of cult dynamics, the characteristics of cults, we see a lot of familiar things. Founder syndrome, etc. And so this is us wanting to really get good at looking clearly at what's going on. We're not saying that Extinction Rebellion is a cult. We're saying, let's look at any organization, any political party, any workplace, look for the cult dynamics and work on making the environment healthier. So it's becoming literate on what we see happening. Are people feeling guilted into doing something? Are they being told, if you actually care about the planet, then you will ... get arrested? What kind of language is being used? Are these tactics manipulative? Let's just look at it and create a space where people can openly talk about their experiences in Extinction Rebellion. The eco-fascism aspect, I think that there is a lot of language being used in the environmental movement in particular that makes us vulnerable to being offered solutions that are eco-fascist. So we want to get literate on that. So we go through examples of a Facebook group where people were giving comments and how those comments kind of are dangerous, and make it so that maybe we will accept some responses to climate change and ecological destruction that sacrifice people around the world, that sacrifice species and ecosystems. Being an ally is an important topic to me because we see that there's been a fair bit of criticism against Extinction Rebellion around how it's treated Black, Indigenous, people of color, people with disabilities, working class people, etc., young people. And so if we want a healthy movement, we need to be able to listen to everybody and to hear everyone's perspectives. Because if we only listen to, for example, white, Western, middle-class people, we're missing the perspective of people who benefit the least from the system. And if our goal is to resist the system, to tell the truth, to make demands, to etc., we need to understand the way the system works. And the only way that will happen is if we can listen to the perspectives of other people who don't benefit from the system in the same way that we do. So that's why we look at being an ally. Internalized oppression is how this can play out, where there are stereotypes about people that we can even believe about ourselves. And it stops us from thinking really clearly. It stops us from getting close to people and figuring out things collaboratively. And it also talks about tokenism so that we don't fall into the trap of using tokenism to validate our own point of view by raising up people who have their own internalized oppression going on, or have a different agenda than what we do. So we need to just be literate and aware and vigilant about these things. Tone policing, I think this is very prevalent in Extinction Rebellion with the regen aspect to it, and people are meant to be nice to one another, and you have to come across as what we might say as a white middle class Western veneer of acceptability, and it being overly kind, not kind, but nice to one another. And it's a bit performative, maybe. I've heard that being described by some people even now. So we want to look at tone policing and how that shows up our privilege and stops us from being able to hear what people are saying about their lived experiences, about what they're facing right now in this Zoom meeting, for example, or on the streets, or in their lives more generally. Cultural appropriation as well can come up in Extinction Rebellion, where to people whose culture you are, appropriating, it can make Extinction Rebellion or any movement organization look unsafe and scary and unwelcoming, because there's a sense of grasping at something that we weren't able to get from our own culture. It's not just a healthy cultural exchange. There's a grasping. And so we look at how this stops people from wanting to be with us, and therefore means that we're not going to get those perspectives that we so need. Language liberation looks at how English is the dominant language. When I was doing trainings for Extinction Rebellion, I was doing it for internationally. And so there'd be countries where people would come forward who wanted to be a part of Extinction Rebellion and start a group. Because everything was in English, we were only attracting immigrants, people who'd left the US or the UK and gone to these other countries where English is their first language, and there weren't hardly any local people at all being part of it, which means that the response to the crisis was being directed by people out of England, rather than having a context appropriate to where people are. And this was a consequence of it being dominated by the English language. So we look at how that stops us from getting full information, full perspectives, and how to counter it. And just to say that in my work with Keduzi, very shortly, everything that I've put out so far is going to be in Spanish as well. And I hope to follow that up with other languages. But the hope is not so much so that I can get people from Spanish-speaking countries to come join my work, but so that I can engage with people and hear their thinking about what's happening in the world and translate and interpret it for English speakers. So it's more to create a space where they know that they're going to be heard and that people are doing the work to make that this community has the humility and curiosity to make space for them, and then to center them eventually as we get everything translated and interpreted. Okay, hope and privilege, this Extinction Rebellion, one of the phrases they use is, when hope dies, action begins, or something like that. So what do we mean by the word hope in the context of Extinction Rebellion? And what does that have to say about our own privilege? Do we hope that we can keep all the privileges that we have now and that our children have into the future? Is that what we mean? What exactly do we mean? So we spend time unpacking that and seeing how other people who do not benefit from the system, how they use the word hope. Certainty again is how we look at the future. There are people in Extinction Rebellion who think definitely there's going to be collapse, extinction, etc. And therefore, what do we mean by certainty, and how does that affect what we're willing to do with our time, power, and privilege? Nonviolence in a violent world challenges the concept of nonviolence. Extinction Rebellion is a nonviolent movement. Well, there's already been lots of cases where that's been challenged. Are they actually being nonviolent in what they do? What do we mean by nonviolence? What do we mean by violence? What kind of violence do we condone? Is it state violence? So this challenges one of the white supremacy culture patterns around binary thinking, either or thinking, and gets us to see violence and nonviolence from a different perspective. So it's to challenge you in that way. It's not to encourage you to become violent, etc., whatever that would mean. Then the last set of workshops and themes, and the Facebook group has each of these as a different guide so that you can explore with other people. Community accountability is what we do when there's harm. And I know that there have been lots of examples of harm taking place within Extinction Rebellion. So we look at what would accountability look like? What would reparations look like? We'd start you off looking in your own life at examples, and then we look at Extinction Rebellion. We can do that together as a community. And we also look at bigger things like fossil fuel companies and how the UK government handled the pandemic. What would accountability look like? Restorative justice actually includes transformative justice as well. So this is about relationships and healing and how the system would need to change in order for us to have true justice. So this can help us understand perspectives from other people, because I draw upon the work of Mariam Kaba. Also, it can help us think about what true justice would look like for Shell oil, kind of thing, looking at climate change and ecological destruction. And then support pods and mutual aid come from things like the disability justice movement. How are people learning to take care of one another and keep each other safe when they haven't been able to rely on the system? What can we learn from them? Have we been doing work throughout this series in order to have the humility and curiosity to listen, learn, and how do we translate that into a movement where your ordinary person knows that you're on their side and that this is about taking care of one another? And this isn't just some white middle-class Western movement where people have nothing better to do than block a road. We don't need that perception, and it's not working. And we can explore that specifically. It's not one of these workshops, Extinction Rebellion isn't one of the named workshops or named guides, but we can make it that way. We can do whatever we want in our community. And so we can explore and figure out how to have what we think is actually going to be effective, and what does effective look like? What is the goal? Lastly is a solution that works for everyone. Nikki Cashton has been a key resource for Extinction Rebellion. She helped Gail write the principles and values, for example, and she's been participating, as far as I'm aware, heavily with co-liberation agenda of Extinction Rebellion. She has come up with something called Convergent Facilitation, which is just a beautiful way of making sure that we listen to what's important to each person, so that that is taken into account when we collectively make decisions. So this can be applied to Extinction Rebellion local meetings. It can be applied to the movement as a whole. It can be applied to what pizza you're going to order tonight with your family. It's a great way to think about power and privilege. I just give you an introduction in the videos. Nikki Cashton has loads of resources, a book, etc., out, available freely on the internet. So I hope that unit whets your appetite, because these are all skills we're going to need so that we're responding appropriately to what's happening in the world, and we're doing it in a way that brings everyone along. So join us if you're interested, and hope to see you soon.